like the last 7 or 8 years in that corporate career that I had, I'd say I'm probably struggling with depression. Right? I talk about the big black dog that used to follow me around because I was burnt out, wasn't enjoying my job, wasn't learning anything, didn't feel appreciated, and constant pressure being added and added and added and added.
Welcome to People Behind Brands, the podcast uncovering the stories, struggles and successes of the entrepreneurs, creatives and innovators from all walks of life. I'm your host, Mark Tuxford, and in each episode I sit down with inspiring guests to explore life lessons from the world of business. These are real people with real stories. And remember, People Behind Brands is more than just a podcast. We also host live events and networking experiences to help you grow your brand through authentic face-to-face connections and powerful conversations. Visit peoplebehindbrands.com for more information. But enough of all that. Let's dive in for another life lesson from the world of business. In the podcast hot seat today is Paul Banks, a creative force in video marketing with Javelin Content Management and the host of MarketPulse, a podcast exploring the ever-evolving world of sales and marketing. But Paul's story goes far beyond video content strategies. He opens up about his personal journey with ADHD, the struggles, the breakthroughs, and how it become a superpower that drives his creativity, energy, and empathy. From volunteering as a police officer to working in retail, Paul's career path is anything but linear. He shares how each chapter shaped the purpose he lives by today, to help people and make a meaningful impact. Paul also talks candidly about his experiences with depression, how his northeast roots in Sunderland and love for football keep him grounded, and why everything he does is ultimately for his family. With his wife as his biggest support, Paul's story is one of resilience, purpose, and turning adversity into action. This one's about identity, community, and finding power in the things that once held us back.
Paul, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Mark. Yourself?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Where are you joining us from today?
Very cloudy, northeast of England, just outside of Durham.
Lovely. Yeah, I've been to Durham. Yeah. Have you been to the smallest pub in Durham? That's a question.
I've been to all the pubs in Durham. You better believe it. I was a student once, right?
Yeah.
Which pub in particular?
I can't remember the name of it, but what I know is that it's the smallest pub in Durham, and you can get probably about 2 people in there. Not enough room to swing a cat, basically. So, yeah, very good pub nonetheless. But yeah, today we welcome Paul Banks from Javelin Content Management, specialising in repurposing video and podcast content. Paul is also a fellow podcast host, fronting the insightful platform MarketPulse podcast. Paul is here today to give an insight into his life lessons from the world of business, but also touch upon what makes him who he is today. So let's get straight into it, Paul. Perhaps firstly, you could tell us a little bit more about your services at Javelin.
My services at Javelin, I feel like I've only just figured them out in the last 6 months. So we've been going since February 23, and it's a family business, right? So it's me and my wife. Originally, it was just me. I brought my wife into it when she got made redundant August of last year. And hands on heart, it's a bit of a passion project for me because I got thrown out of the corporate world. They couldn't tolerate my behaviour anymore. I made a rod for my own back, and it was time to leave. And so I joined the startup Mavericks. I jumped into that world, and very quickly found myself having moved from being a store manager and a retail leader for most of my life, trying to figure out how to reach senior leaders and capture a very executive audience. Rapidly figured out, we could dive into a bit more detail. Rapidly figured out that was through video. And so I built a business out of the bits that I really enjoy from startup, which effectively is helping people to unlock the value in their conversations that they're already having. So if you're a guest on a podcast, most people tend to post that, the link to that show on YouTube or whatever, and then wonder why they're not getting more conversations in the inbox. And actually what we specialize in is taking that 20, 30 minutes apart, splitting it into lots and lots of clips, not the 5 that you might get as a standard package elsewhere, but really going to town on wringing that content out, turn it into clips for all the different social platforms, quotes, images, descriptions for YouTube, the thumbnails for YouTube, you name it, we produce it. And it's all kind of a standard package, right? Like I don't like complexity, so it's all nice and simple. We started off that with kind of content interviews for people where they were launching a business maybe, or they had a new product, or they just wanted to share their story. We'd start with that. And actually it's become much more about, you know, as 2025 goes on, it's clear podcasting is absolutely taking off. People were saying last year it's peaked, it's done. It's absolutely not. It's still blowing up.
Yeah.
So vast majority of our work now is helping busy podcast hosts do more with their content that they've already got, take it off their hands, make it nice and simple for them. We talk about record and walk away. That's the kind of feel that we're going for.
Yeah. No, I see firsthand of what you guys do. It's a very good service that you offer, and you really help your clients to go to the next level. So, yeah, really recommend Paul's services. But before you embarked on your Javelin journey, I noticed whilst doing my research that you've had some interesting career points, such as working in a supermarket, contact centres, selling kitchens, and even becoming a volunteer police officer. So perhaps you can briefly touch upon this area of your life.
So I originally thought I was going to be a software engineer, right? Once upon a time, I wanted to be a website developer. That's what I really wanted, but you couldn't get degrees in website development back in the day. So I had to settle for software engineering, which took me way away from where I wanted to be. It was far too hardcore coding for my liking. I kind of surfed through university on a cocktail of cider and blackcurrant and copying other people's work and somehow fumbling through everything, which was just as well, because at the end of all of that, the dot-com bubble burst and I didn't have a career anymore. I could move down to London for 6 weeks at a time was what I was being offered. So I did what you know, new graduates do, and I moved into retail as a graduate. 15 years later, I learned to loathe graduates coming through the retail system. I hated them. If you're out there watching this and you were one of those graduates, yeah, I did actually hate you. Sorry, but I'm not sorry. So yeah, I ended up in Lidl, German discount retail, very hard work, very sink or swim, but learned some amazing skills. That's where I ended up. But in the middle of that, you're right, I tried to sell kitchens. I wouldn't say I sold kitchens because I never actually sold any. I found that being a con man wasn't really my thing. And kitchens direct, if you're listening up in yeah, no, I can't sell 15 grand kitchens for or 3 grand kitchens for 15 grand. It's just not in me. So I failed miserably at that. Call center, yeah, I joined the call center and I loved it, and probably would have been a career for me, but it's also where I met my wife, my now wife. She's the reason I don't work in call centers anymore, because we decided we couldn't work face to face in the same corporate environment. It's not good for my health.
Can't work together, but can get married.
Well, this is it. Yeah. See, I found that my work ethics at the time as a 19-year-old didn't tie in with her work ethics. She was very much a keep a book of all my clients I've ever spoken to and make sure I ring them up, and even if I'm getting wrong for doing it, give them that amazing experience. And my approach at the time was, how can I get off this call quicker?
Yeah.
It didn't go down well, but I recognised that I enjoyed the leadership side of it, so I was pushing towards that, and then I ended up in retail, being offered a leadership position there, and never really looked back. I think it was about 5 years into that, I bumped into a friend of mine who he'd been one of the guys at my work experience at university. So I did a year out at uni, and he'd been one of the guys at it's a fire surrounds manufacturer. And I bumped into him at a fair, and he was in uniform. And I was like, I thought you worked at you were a police officer now. He's like, I'm a volunteer. And at the time, I'd been thinking about applying full time. I was thinking it might be a career for me. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Didn't realize you could do that. Kind of fast forward 6 months, and I joined. And actually, at one point, I was waiting for the confirmation from Northumbria Police that I could join full time. I'd passed all the tests and everything, done the fitness test and everything, waiting on a start date. And then I was in retail at the time, and they offered to double my wages overnight because they changed the whole career structure of everything and recognised they were losing talent to other places. And I don't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing in reflection, but I decided to stay in retail and stick that out. There's a lot of people leaving police force now. But yeah, I've done everything from, if you look at the retail side, I've done everything from running stores to setting new stores up, closing old stores down. I've worked in warehousing, logistics, admin, KPI management, internal theft and loss prevention, done all of that. And then as a police officer, I did everything from neighbourhood policing, response policing, drugs section, dogs section, substance misuse unit, traffic unit, road accident unit. You name it, I've been there and done it. It's been a whirlwind of a sort of 15 years or so.
So how do you think those experiences have kind of led you to fronting your own business? Because obviously they are very diverse, obviously industries that you've worked in and jobs that you've had. So what made you want to go down the route of owning your own business?
I realised at the grand old ripe old age of 39, I realised I'm ADHD. And I had no idea for my entire life. I only realised because it became obvious that my son was probably going to be ADHD. And the more I looked into it, the more I kind of suspected, but I'd never really thought about it too much. Never really paid too much interest or what it might mean for me. And I realise now that the whole time I've been looking for my dopamine hits as I've gone along. And I've always said, like, in as humble way as possible, like, people have always asked me, like, what do you want to do in 10 years time? And I'd be like, I have no idea what I want to do in 10 years time, but I do know that if I enjoy the job and you point me at it, I will get it done and I'll do a good job of it.
Yeah.
I will figure out a way to be the best there is at that job. And I think that kind of all really tied nicely together. It was very much a weight off my shoulders when I realized that's why I've been a generalist all my life, as other people have described it, and yet struggled to understand things like numbers in any great depth. Like, I know my top line figures, but you ask me any depth of questions and my brain just switches off. It's boring and not having it. But
how do you feel that, like, ADHD has affected you? Do you see it as a positive or a negative? And the reason why I say that is because we had a chap on a couple of weeks ago who talks about his own ADHD positives and negatives. So how do you feel that ADHD impacts you, I guess?
I think for me, it's been a massive positive, but only because I learned how to cope with the downsides.
I know ADHD, it affects people in different ways, I suppose, but I've got friends and sort of family that have had ADHD or still got ADHD. And I think their sort of symptoms have been a lot of emotional. So they react on emotional things, like you just said, with like sort of trolls and stuff like that, but also concentration. So do those two elements relate to you as well?
Yeah, I think emotional, like I'm a guy that I can watch a film and cry, even though I haven't watched most of the film. Like, I'll just look up, watch a scene for 5 minutes, and I'll be like holding back the tears, I like choking. Like, why am I, like, I'm not even invested in this film. Why am I feeling emotional? I can watch a clip on YouTube. I remember seeing one not so long back. It was a young footballer who'd been racially abused on the pitch, and they got him off for the press conference afterwards, and he got man of the match or something. And all the press people were like, "So how does it feel to be man of the match?" And this young kid, he was just like 19 or something. He just broke down, and he was like, "How can you act like nothing's happened?"
Yeah.
And honestly, I showed this to my son. I can feel myself getting emotional now. Like, I cried with my son because I was like, nobody's son should have to go through this. Nobody's child, nobody's dad, nobody should have to go through this. So I'm very much a strong ethics and morals goes hand in hand with ADHD and autism as well. Very much a sense of right. And again, this is why a lot of people with ADHD end up as police officers, ambulance, fire engines. Like, it's all to do with that, one, dopamine hit, but two, like, righting wrongs in the world.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, the the concentration. Like I nearly lost concentration of what I was answering there, right? Like concentration, yeah, it's tough. For years, my wife was like, why do you not listen to me? I'm like, I do listen to you. She's like, no. I've just been talking to you for the last 10 minutes. You haven't heard a word I've said. And I'll be honest, like, I'm like, yeah, I didn't hear a word you said, but like, it wasn't because I wasn't listening to you. We had eye contact. I was watching what's coming out of your mouth, but my brain had switched off and I couldn't describe it. I couldn't explain it. It sounded feeble when I tried to explain it. And then when I realized and I talked her through, and I said that this is what it is. This is all this time that you've been moaning at me about this. This is what it is. And like light bulb moment for both of us. And I was like, I'm amazed really that you've put up with me for 20 years, like the way I am, right? Like without knowing that that's what that was. Like any other woman would have just gone, you never listened to me, I'm off. I mean, don't get me wrong, it nearly happened, but we got through it. But now to know that, and I think that's for me, that's the big part of it, is there is very little understanding of what ADHD actually means. The real, all the little traits that go with it. There's so many of them that are hand in hand. And even if like the coexisting conditions, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, I'm sat playing with a fidget, right? Like I have to have a fidget on podcast, otherwise I end up breaking pens and stuff. But yet to meet me and speak to me in person, other than the fact that I can't hold in what's in here when I need to speak, I will just interrupt and talk over the top of people. Other than that, you would never guess, because I've learned to control it to such an extent that most people don't even figure it out. Unless you work with me a lot, then you'll kind of get the gist of it.
Obviously, you're on our podcast today, People Behind Brands, but you've got your own podcast, MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers. So just talk to us a bit more about the podcast that you run, generally, and what it's all about, essentially.
So it's interesting, right? So we do video repurposing for people. And I've always said that I don't want to just kind of sit still with what we offer. I want to be at the leading edge of what's possible here. What can we do? What works? What feels a bit, what technology is not quite there yet? And in the early part of that, I found like it was quite hard to figure out how to try stuff, because you don't want to try it on client work, because it just, if it doesn't come off, then you look a bit of a fool. And so, hands on heart, I built MarketPulse for a few different reasons, really. First of all, I wanted to educate myself on sales and marketing, obviously. Second thing I wanted to do was to meet some really interesting and cool people. And it's surprising how hard it is to network with really cool and interesting people, because they tend not to go to networking meetings a lot. They tend to be very busy working on their own endeavors, and they generally don't appreciate a message in the inbox going, hey, would you like a virtual coffee with me? Because everybody knows that's code for, would you like to buy my stuff? And that's not what I was trying to do, right? Like I genuinely enjoy having conversations with interesting people. So it killed a few different birds with one stone. But for me, the big advantage was that I got to test out and trial all these different cool ways of editing videos, whilst building awesome relationships with people. The irony is it's turned out to be one of my biggest marketing channels, one of my biggest sales channels, because the people I get on the show recommend me to other people, and I've had loads of work from people who've watched the show or been part of it. But I think, we pivoted season 2 because I got the end of season 1. I wasn't even planning on doing seasons, if I'm honest. It was just a podcast, and we did all right. We did 55 episodes in season 1. By the time I got to the end of it, I felt like it was a bit jaded for me. Like I was struggling to enjoy being part of the podcast because there was something missing from it. I felt like I was trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, because we were focusing so much on the marketing questions. Like what's an example of something you wish we could get rid of today? What's one thing? And everybody's answer was always AI this or AI that, or yes AI or no AI, or AI in the middle. And I'm like, this is great, but like it's just the same answers. Everyone feels the same, and it's a hot topic. How do I get away from this? I realized that the one thing that sets us all apart in our business is why we do what we do. It's not our marketing, it's not our offering, it's not our products and services, it's why we do what we do. And so season 2 focuses on the journey of how you got from where you started out, where you thought you were going to end up, but where you were actually meant to end up and where you do end up, because everybody does end up where they're meant to be, whether they like it or not. We find our own path there. I've never spoken to a marketer yet who meant to be a marketer.
Yeah.
We all fell into it, right?
Yeah.
One way or another, everyone. And so I find that fascinating, and it's true with a lot of industries, to be fair. So season 2 is all about, let's analyze that journey. Let's understand how you got where you are. Let's understand why and how that sets you apart uniquely in your own space. 26 episodes into season 2 now, loving it. I feel like it's a new episode, new podcast.
You enjoying the episode so far? Well, whilst you're here, don't forget to subscribe for exclusive content and all the latest episodes. You can also follow us on social media. Just search People Behind Brands.
You know, you've spoken about your career to this point. You know, there's lots of things that you've done. You know, you touched upon your family a little bit. We'll come on to that in a bit as well. But what's your mission for Paul Banks?
My why is to help people make the best decisions that they can in order to live their life to the highest potential. Sounds like a lot of waffle when I say it like that, but it actually boils down to a lot of the things that I've sought out throughout my life. You know, as a police officer, I wanted to help people resolve their conflicts by giving them the right information, by helping them make the right choice for themselves. When I was in retail, I wanted to help them make the right purchases, to be able to find the right purchases, when I worked behind the scenes in retail, it was about telling the story through data to help them and, you know, help my leaders make the right decisions for the business. I moved into conversation analytics, where we were turning customer conversations into data insights and analysis so we could understand, you know, what's being said on this conversation, what's not being said, and what does that mean for the business? How can we help improve these people's lives? So for me, it's always been about that helping people make decisions element. And now, I guess, you know, we talk about video repurposing. It's about helping them make the decision or not, as the case may be, to share their story more publicly, or help other people share their story, or help them to make their clients' decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, it's easy to, once you understand what underlies it all, it's easy to kind of apply it to lots of different things. But honestly, that was such a weight off my shoulders when I realized that was the common denominator amongst everything that I'd done.
Yeah. Yeah. So our podcast is founded upon honesty, and our testing times have impacted our lives. So away from business, can you tell us about a challenging time in your life that made you who you are today?
I think there's been so many. I think, you know, when my first, I mean, we talk about challenging times, right? There's also the good times that form us as well. Like, so I'm a family guy, and my 2 sons are pretty much everything that all the energy I invest in the business, it's because I want to build something for us as a family. I want to be there for them when they need me, when you know, school concerts or sports day and things like that. I couldn't do that when I was in corporate. So in a way, like, kind of I was married at 19, divorced at 21. Somebody said I couldn't do something. Somebody said, you can't propose to her after 9 days. I absolutely did. Again, ADHD, right? I will not be told what I can and can't do.
Yeah.
I will rail against it. I will rebel. But I think if I was to pick any one particular moment, I mean, I'd probably have to say, you know, like the last 7 or 8 years in that corporate career that I had, I'd say I'm probably struggling with depression. Right? I talk about the big black dog that used to follow me around, because I was burnt out, wasn't enjoying my job, wasn't learning anything, didn't feel appreciated, and constant pressure being added and added and added and added. And I was fortunate enough to go through those times with a very good friend of mine who's now he became my best man at my wedding a couple of years back, Andy. And we used to laugh about the black dog, right? We'd send each other messages, black dog's back. But it was bravado, and like you have to kind of laugh to get through things sometimes. But that was, it taught me who I don't want to be. And when I see those warning signs now, I know things are starting to cross a line. I need to change things and switch things up, because I can't ever let it go back to the way things were. I don't think anybody who's gone through depression in a serious way, like, don't get me wrong, I was never diagnosed with depression, right? I never went to the doctors about it. It was never one of those kind of conversations, but I just don't think it ever leaves. I think it's something that's always kind of stuck there, I think. And I don't know whether because ADHD, my satisfaction levels are set way up here when somebody else is sat down here. So I think it's even harder for somebody who's ADHD to get out of that box and find that satisfaction. And I think that's why I do what I do now, because it's my business. I can say yes to things. I can say no to things. I'm in charge of my own jobs list, and I can be flexible when and how I do those jobs, which means that I can react to how I feel in any given day. So there'll be days where I've got a ton of client work on, but actually I'm really not feeling it. I'm going out for a walk with my wife. Like, she works from home now as well. I'll give her the day off. Right, let's go for a walk. We're going out for an hour and a half. We'll go and get a coffee, come back. I guarantee I'm 10 times better when I get back, and I know exactly what I can get done. So I think that for me has been the challenge. I mean, I know you said kind of away from work, but I think that is because it impacts everything. Yeah, it pervades everything.
How do you think that time, or certainly times where you might have had that sort of come about again, how do you think that impacts your family life? Because you mentioned obviously about your children, you mentioned about your wife and all that sort of stuff. How much of a support network are they in that sense?
Mitch, my wife is my rock. Couldn't imagine going through all that without her. And I still to this day, I've said it before, I don't know how she put up with me for 20 years. Because quite honestly, there's a lot of that time I probably was in that funk. I lost my sense of humor was the big one. I'm bonkers, right? Like, in a good way, I'd like to think. I'm bonkers. I like to have a laugh. I like to have a laugh at myself. And that disappeared, it evaporated. I'd find myself sat on a night, I'd have a drink every night, whether I liked it or not. I'd have a drink every night. Not a lot, I wouldn't get drunk, but I'd have a drink every night. And I'd be sat 8 o'clock at night, nodding off, bolt upright. And I'd have to sit upright on the couch, not even leaning back on the couch. I'd sit bolt upright. I was so tired. I'd be falling asleep, nodding off, bolt upright. Christmas Day, I'd have worked right up until 5, 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve. I'd see the kids I only had the one at the time when I was working in that role, but like I'd see the kids for an hour or two before bed on Christmas Eve. Christmas Day would be so painful because you'd be getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning, and you're not getting a rest until 7 or 8 o'clock at night that night, and you've got all sorts of toys to put together and family to organize and all the stress that, like, it's a stressful day, Christmas Day for a parent, right? And we'd argue, like massively argue. It got easier as time went on, because I think she kind of accepted that it wasn't me. And I don't know how much of it was magnified by the ADHD as well, right? Like my inability to control I could never take my finger off the go button at work. So I'd get into work at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'd wear a step counter. I'd have done 15,000 steps by 8 a.m.
So it's fair to say that those times that you've experienced have had a strain on your marriage and family life then? Huge.
I mean, my son at the time, like I'd probably see him. I'd see him every other night, really. Like sometimes he'd be in bed before I got in from work, and I'd be up and out the door before he. You couldn't plan anything, so I'd have to drop change shifts at the drop of a hat, because that's retail, right? Like, and again, this isn't a reflection of them as an employer. Like, there's plenty of retailers that employ people in the same way. It's just the way it impacted on me wasn't good for me. But yeah, it was a dark time.
Yeah. Well, from dark times, hopefully, to positive times with your football club, Sunderland. So obviously a very successful period for the club, winning promotion back to the Premier League via the playoffs recently. And I have to mention it because You know, I've got family that are Sunderland supporters, very excited for, you know, the new season coming in, obviously being back in the Premier League. But it's been a ride for you guys, isn't it? It's been, you know, you've got the documentary on Netflix, you know, and it's been a club that's been a sleeping giant for a long time, really. And now you're back in the Premier League. So perhaps talk to us a little bit about what football actually means in the community of Sunderland.
It's everything, mate. It's a religion. I mean, we go back to, like, my granddad was a riveter on the shipyards at Wearside, and pretty much all my family was involved in either shipyards or the pits in one way or shape or form. And it was a thing that kept everyone going, because it was a real working class environment. They had to have something to look forward to, and I think it was the thing that the whole community could get behind. And even if you were at work on the shipyards, when there was a football game on at Roker Park, you would hear that, you know, the Roker roar from miles away, and you would know, even when you were at work, Sunderland were winning. And we used, you know, back in the 60s and the 70s, we used to do plenty of that. I grew up, my dad was from Ford Estate in Sunderland. Not the worst area of Sunderland, but certainly not the better part of Sunderland. And you know, I grew up on stories of Roker Park. I never got to visit Roker Park because it was pretty much on the way out before I was old enough to start going. But I went to the first game at the Stadium of Light when we played Ajax, and it was amazing. It was the one game I remember going with my dad, and we just had an amazing time. I started taking my son, he's 7 now, so we started going about a year and a half ago. It was, I think it was near Remembrance Day 2023, because I realised finally that I wasn't working in corporate, and because I wasn't in a startup anymore, I could have my weekends to myself. And I thought, well, why aren't I taking my son to the games? Like, I always wanted to go to the games. Why aren't I taking him? So we started going, and it's part of being a tribe.
A little trivia before we end the episode, where we talk about some of your most favourite things in a quick fire round. So, are you ready for a quick fire round, Paul?
As ready as I can be. Go for it.
Right. So, first question: favourite food?
Chinese takeaway.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that. Favourite band or artist from the world of music?
Def Leppard.
Okay, yeah, it's a first shout we've had on this podcast. So, yeah, interesting. Favourite TV program or film?
Or TV program, I think. I'd have to go. Oh, you've got me there. Got so many favourites. I'm a bit of a TV series. I'm going to go the X-Files. You know what? I'm going to go old school.
That's it.
Can't beat the X-Files.
Yeah. Favourite place in the world or holiday destination?
The Dominican Republic. I love the Dominican.
I'd love to go there. I've never been there myself.
Food, the country, the culture is just amazing, but the people make it. The people are, it's a home away from home. Beautiful people.
I must admit, I think anywhere you go, it's the people that make it, isn't it? You know, you could go to the best place in the world in your opinion, but it's got to be the people that make it, in my opinion, whether it's, you know, who you go with or who's already there. So yeah. Favourite famous person?
Do you know what? I think Idris Elba.
Okay.
Just something completely different and out there, but he strikes me as a real gentleman who has real old school ethics and morals. And I just think you could get him in a room and you would have a conversation with him. There would be no ego and attitude. I think he's just a guy. I think it'd be a phenomenal conversation to have.
Yeah. Well, I think you should get him on your podcast, mate. Idris, if you're listening.
That's his number.
Yeah. Favourite all-time Sunderland player?
Kevin Ball.
Okay. Yeah.
The hardest man in football.
Yeah. Good player. Yeah. Biggest pet peeve?
There's so many. People not putting things back where they belong.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to the ADHD and the OCD thing, right? Like, it's got a home. Why haven't we put it back?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Favourite household chore?
Favourite one? Cutting the lawn. It's quite therapeutic.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. What do you think when you look in the mirror?
Jesus, you're looking old. I see my dad a lot, actually.
Really?
Like now, I never used to. I could never see my dad in me. Like I was always a bit confused where I got all my genetics and stuff from, because I'm taller than my dad, and dad had curly hair, and like he did go bald early, so I got that from him. Thanks, Dad. But yeah, I see my dad in myself more than I ever did now, which is nice but scary at the same time.
Yeah, I know what you mean. How long do you spend getting ready in the morning?
Oh, as little as possible, about 3.5 seconds.
Okay, yeah. No, I've had a lot of half an hours. I've had a lot of 20 minutes, but yeah, that's probably the shortest so far.
What's on the top of the drawer, in the t-shirt drawer, that gets pulled out, put on. What's in the top of the drawer in the shorts drawer gets put on. What's in one pair of socks, doesn't matter whether they match or not. Pair of pants, obviously first, but and that's it. Get out. Like I've got no time for getting dressed.
Yeah,
I'd never make a footballer.
What inspires you on a daily basis?
People with courage. People with courage. People who have the courage to stand up for what they believe in, against the odds, despite the consequences. People who aren't afraid to, and can go about that in a professional way. I think have dignity with it while they do it. I've never failed to be inspired by those people. And if I had to, if I had to pick a more something a little bit less ambiguous, then I'd have to say my son and my wife.
Yeah,
because like every day I'm just absolutely in awe of both of them. Their abilities to do things, their compassion, their work ethics. It's phenomenal to see. So proud of the little family that we have. And the youngest one's getting there, and he's only 2, so I can't say he's shaping up to be a role model yet, because he's still busy throwing his banana at me. But I'm sure when he gets a little bit older and he stops in my face in the morning, then we'll be all right.
Yeah. When did you last cry?
Oh God, I nearly cried earlier on. I was at a friend's funeral probably a couple of months back. So a guy who I'd worked with, my first, well, not quite my first, but my first proper manager in retail, taught me everything I knew, and unfortunately passed away. He was only 52. He passed away a couple of months back, so that was particularly sad, because he was pretty much an embodiment of life. He was just Mr. Energetic and Mr. Happy. So sad.
Best piece of advice you've ever been given?
It's my old area manager, right? He was from Leeds, Luke. Well-known character. He just, he was the sort that he'd pick up a loaf of bread and throw it at you across the floor because you hadn't done the dates properly, right? Like he had a hell of a temper, but a lot of the stuff he came out with was actually 100% right. And he came to me one day and he went, I was moaning about something, and he went, Paul, why have you come to me with these problems? Stop coming to me with problems and come to me with solutions. And that stuck with me for 20 years. And I still, to this day, hear him in my head. When I'm moaning about something, I'm like, stop thinking about the problem, Paul. Like, the problem is what the problem is. You can't do anything about it. Yeah. What you can do is come up with a solution. Buck stops with you. And he was actually right, 100%.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And congratulations on a very good Yorkshire accent there. 3 guests you would invite to a dinner party, and why?
God. Well, first up, I'd have my dad, because he's no longer with me. So without a shadow of a doubt, I'd have him there. I'd actually be really interested to talk to Barack Obama. I think growing up from working class roots like he did, I can't imagine what he's seen in his lifetime. As a working class black man, getting to where he is. Yeah. And then Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, because wow, that would be amazing. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah, let's have that dinner party. It's a very good dinner party. And finally, what makes a good person behind their brand?
the ability to be unapologetically authentic. Like, just be who you are. It doesn't matter if, well, it does matter if it offends people, if you're being offensive, but it doesn't matter if being who you are offends people. It doesn't matter if people dislike you because of who you are, as long as you are who you are.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's how you will attract other people who align with you. And there will be. You might be very divisive, you might be very polarizing, but you can still be yourself, and your brand will follow that. If you're anything other than that, people will see straight through it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Paul, look, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today. I really hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, because it's been one of my sort of favourite episodes, especially talking about football, which is always nice. But yeah, perhaps to end the episode, if you could just tell our listeners where they can find Javelin, but also the podcast as well.
So if you want to find more about Javelin, you can either find me on LinkedIn, because I post about Javelin all the time, or you can go to javelincontent.com. And if you search for MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers podcast on YouTube, or just at MarketPulse podcast on YouTube, you'll find us there.
Perfect. Thanks, Paul.
So that's it for this episode of People Behind Brands, and thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe for exclusive content and all the latest updates and episodes. You can also follow us on social media. Just search People Behind Brands to join in the conversation. Head over to peoplebehindbrands.com to stay in the loop for all of our latest live events coming up, and spread the word amongst your community. Join us next time for a brand new guest as we explore more life lessons from the world of business. We'll see you soon. People Behind Brands. Life lessons from the world of business.